Good morning. Good morning. Welcome, Barton, again. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, usually the welcome Barton is the Florida Supreme Court certified civil and county court mediator, real estate attorney for partner at Stroke Cohen Zipper Law Group and title company Safety Key Title and Closings. They are in Weston and Fort Lauderdale. And well, I believe the topic today is very, very catchy and with a lot of recommendations when protecting agents when the seller is not disclosing factual facts on the property. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Jackie, it's always a pleasure to be here. This how to protect agents, buyers, everybody from a seller who fails to disclose is probably the most difficult topic. Because, first of all, you don't know what you don't know. So, if the seller doesn't tell you about a lot of things, um, you have no way of knowing. There's also, we could do a lien search, but that only shows violations. If work was done without permits and no one's caught it, there's no violation. You're not going to find out till you go to pull a permit and someone comes in, inspects, and says, oh, that was done, that was done, that was done. So that's a very difficult area for any protection. Here's the things I recommend. First of all, a good realtor. A good realtor with a good team that has a lot of experience and could sort of sense or pick up on something, whether it's questionable. So the first step is this a house that the seller recently purchased, remodeled, and is now flipping back to sale? So there's a case where you very often see no permits pulled. So just pulling a lien search might not be enough. You need to either alert your closing agent that this was a flip and to pull a full permit search to see what permits were done, not what there's a violation. So if windows were changed, if plumbing was moved, new countertops or whatever, cabinets or something, you could look at the list of permits for that property, and some counties have it online, some cities have it online, and find out if permits were pulled to do any of that work, and that could lead to questions. A good inspection.
And what about I for that I understand, and I was showing homes for buyer that is looking for a home who has that have a built-in efficiency, or it can be built an efficiency inside because she's looking for a house for her, but she said that she wants a space and she wants to have an income on the same house. So we were showing a home, beautiful, by the way, the work they were doing, and I noticed that they break all the walls and it's two different electric, and it feels like it was no floating, like you go inside and it was like something is missing. And the person who was doing the renovation is also an inspector for the city of I don't know, he said Tamarack Market, but they said the cities now and looking at the MLS, and they are looking for whatever listing said new renovation, totally renovate and everything, look for the permits and go to check the house. And that happened with this house because they changed all the plumbing, they changed all the electric for the old to the new, And when the inspector went, he said like, well, open the walls. And he said like, we didn't do anything. We just put new kitchen. And the inspector said, open the wall. And they have to do all the work again. So I told my buyer, I said like, listen, this is what happened when you think you can do some renovations, and because it's inside the house, nobody will look at. So she was like, oh my God. And said, and that's an excellent point, because right now, I think 7 to 10 property that I show are totally renovated.
Yes. And I'm doing a case now that on a landlord-tenant issue, where the person bought the house, did all the work himself, and tenant moved in December, and by the beginning of January, the city had, it was listed for rental as recently renovated. Beginning of January, stop work order on the door. Walls were moved, plumbing done, AC, all without permits, and water is pouring in from the roof.
And what we can do as an agents when we go to, like, we don't see everything inside a title. We saw some permits that are like, I call public, like you can see it, but how we know, how we ask in the way that, can you show, it's like we can ask for showing us the permits. Can you like prove that this was on with permit, and the city like approve the renovation and everything? It is something that we can ask.
You could ask for that in the inspection period if you think there's work's been done, especially like you say, recently renovated. I mean, any of these that are advertised with efficiency that's added, I would venture to guess it's illegal. It's a single family house, and I would be quite so years ago, I used to teach realtors, especially in Miramar. The first thing you look at when there's a room in the garage is, have they raised it to the level of the rest of the house? Because the garage is always a step down. Mm-hmm. And if they haven't raised it to the level of the rest of the house, it's an illegal addition, that room, which means the air conditioning they put in, everything, the electric, everything's been done without a permit and will need to be torn out eventually. So that's the first rule. Has the garage been brought up to grade? But that you could see. You can't see plumbing behind the walls. Mm-hmm. You don't know where that toilet was prior to the renovation, or how the kitchen was rearranged so that the dishwasher is in a new place and they had to move plumbing. Yeah. So, there's no way for a buyer to know that, which is why you try to get a full printout of all the permits on that property since the seller purchased the house. And maybe they didn't do any work. But it's just, if it's been recently renovated, then that's the time to look. I've had a lot of clients get stuck like that. So, I mean, I had one client, I lost him because I've never seen the house. I didn't know what was done or that work was done. His realtor should have known. And his realtor is also a GC. And his realtor should have checked for permits, and he didn't. But because he got stuck, he blamed me because I didn't find it in my searches. Well, if there's no violation, I'm not going to find it in my lien report. Yeah. So that's a problem. A good inspector, especially an inspector who might have been a GC or something in the trades prior to becoming an inspector, a good inspector may be able to see some of those things. Sellers go out of their way to hide stuff. They'll paint over mold. Nobody has X-ray vision. Can't see in the wall, can't see mold if it's been hidden. So a very thorough inspection by a good inspector. Must get a mold report these days. Whatever inspector you use should be certified with mold also, and take a mold reading.
My
It's in,
inspector
yeah.
does.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because they can cover all the mold they want, but if the spores are in the air, you're going to find it. It could be in the air conditioner, it could be behind walls, could be behind appliances, but you need a good, thorough inspection that shows it.
And what happened? I have one of my beautiful homes that when I went to and they did the seller's disclosure and said like, do you have any leaks on the roof? And they said no, the roof is perfect, everything was good. You say, are you sure? You don't, it looks like an old. No, perfect. We never has a leak. So we got in under contract and came the inspector, and they found a pocket on the roof where the water was dripping. And I go like, no wonder you don't have a leak. And like, how come that bucket goes there? And he said like, no idea. And he said, listen. And the buyer was like blaming me because I didn't see it. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going inside any attic or between the ceiling and the roof. That is not my job. That's the purpose of the seller's disclosure. They cancel because they believe like the house has more problems than what the seller's disclosure was doing. So what we can do is that, like, well, I really like, I want to kill the seller, not in the physical way, but
You
I
can't.
was
The same way you're on the witness stand, or you and I mean, I could be telling you a total lie right now. How would you know? Um, like I said, we don't know what we don't know. So a lot of realtors will go through with a transaction without a seller's disclosure.
yeah.
So when you make an offer, if there's no seller's disclosure already in the MLS that's current, then you need to write in the special clauses. Seller will provide a completed seller disclosure,
Mhm.
and buyer shall have, by this date, and buyer shall have 3 days after to cancel. So at least you get a chance to review that and see it.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of um, a lot of inspectors limit their inspections, so you need sometimes you need a separate roof report by a roofer. Sometimes you need a
Mhm.
separate pool report by a pool person who knows the motors and whether there's leaks. Depends upon, read that inspection report carefully, because a lot of inspections reports say recommend an inspection by a qualified plumber, recommend inspection by a qualified electrician. So, it's if the seller lies to you and you fail to find it,
Mhm.
first of all, was it open and obvious that you could have seen it? Was it there and your inspector missed it? The fact is, it's still a very difficult and expensive lawsuit to try to get that from the seller. So you want to try to beat that in the beginning. Mold, you got to do a mold test.
Yeah.
That's the
I
biggest
usually have
complaint
it.
I get today, that
Mhm.
the wall. Hey, my realtor told me to paint the house to get it ready for selling, and they painted right over mold. 2
Yeah.
months later, the paint is peeling off. Um,
Yeah. I
so,
remember when the foreclosure time that I prefer to see the houses with no cleaning. So as the other family um, left, because
mhm.
when they cover on paint, you smell the paint, and it have to be a very hard mold in order to you know overcome the fresh painting smell. So, and when we go to an inspection and we begins to find all these as a representing the seller, representing the buyer is kind of, let's get out of here and cancel and we are done. But as a listing agent, what we I sometimes I just cancel once sometimes because the seller begin to be a little goofy, and I don't want to be in that middle. But how we can approach the seller in a way to tell them how important and expensive will be if they go to a lawsuit because no disclosing something that it must be done with permit, or any problem that has the house has with leaks or anything. How we can approach the seller in that to realize that if he's an intelligent seller, obviously some people are never will listen or anything.
So there's a limit to what legal advice you can give a seller as
Mm-hmm.
the consequences of their failure to disclose the truth. That's number one. Second of all, if the seller is a lying dirtbag and intends to lie, I was going to use a stronger word, and intends to lie and is a cheater, there's nothing that you could say that's going to change it because they know it all and they're going to beat the system.
Yeah.
But you do have an obligation to, number one, tell the seller the contract and point out and show here in the contract is where it says that you have to disclose all facts. Let me see the language. Um, let's see. So you have to tell the seller um, they have to disclose if they've made any improvements without permits. That's in paragraph 10B. Okay. They need to disclose that. And they need to disclose in 10J that they know of no fact that materially affects the value of the real property. Now, there's form disclosures out there, but you need to point out that disclosure section of the contract. Most realtors don't. Most realtors don't even know what's in there.
Yeah.
You have to give them the form to fill out. They need to fill it out in their own handwriting or their own computer. You can't fill it out for them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can help them, but they're the ones that have to answer the question and sign it. Okay. And you could let them know that if that you have the same duty as them, that your duty as a transaction broker, as every broker, is honesty to all parties. So if you know of something, you have to disclose it. Okay? So if they tell you, no, I don't want to disclose this, and you know, don't
Mm-hmm.
take the listing. Plain and simple. Would you know that?
Yeah.
A lot of realtors are not willing to walk away from a commission until the first time they get sued.
I'd
Um,
really like to sleep, you know,
Me too.
every night, and I don't want more problems that I already have. So I don't take any listing that I feel that the seller are not being open and honest with
Mhm.
anything that they do, or they, even if they didn't know. Let's play also uh, owners that they don't know what they have to do. Like I didn't know I have to have a permit if I changing my kitchen, and I want, you know, a bigger sink or whatever, or the house is too old or whatever. It's my kitchen. That's the first thing. Like, well, it's my kitchen. What I cannot do,
Nope.
what I cannot change it, or I don't like my bathroom or anything. So, um, honest, like, and let's be honest. For many of the countries that like in my country, you don't need a permit to do anything in your house.
This
Literally,
is your country. The
well, the country
country
I
where you
came
came
from,
from.
yeah, the country I came from, I know like we changed all the floors in my mother's house, and we did the bathroom and everything, and we just have to, you know what the person what we were doing, like, and don't break in the plumbing, or don't, you know, and of course somebody on the upper did the same, and we have a flooding. But you know, we don't go to any type of the county or the city to say, oh, they changed the floor and they break in the plumbing. No, you fix it and fix mine, something like that. And it's many times here, like when it's people coming from another country and they want a new home and they say, like, I want to change everything and find a company that will do it. The company will not say, oh, we need a permit, because they don't want to do the process to go and present all the project and everything. And if the person is basically not knowing what it have to be done, they will do it. So, and they will not know if it was done right or not. So that's just to work
Sometimes
together
if
with
you
the
really
owner.
suspect something's wrong with the property, roof, whatever, you could even suggest to the seller that he gets a head start on getting ready and orders his own inspection report. So he could show that he's cleared everything.
Yeah, that's
That's
a great
a
that's
suggestion.
a
Most
great
of them
idea.
have to spend the $400 to do it. But to me, that's a great selling point. You put that inspection online so people see it. On MLS with something that all repairs have been completed from inspection, or look, inspection is clear, or just minor issues going as is. So that always helps, and that could help you. But thorough review of the house by the buyer and the agent, good inspection, good. Seller disclosure, a permit check if you can get one, especially on a house that's recently been renovated.
And what about the investors that they say we never live on the property and we don't do the seller's disclosure because we don't know. We never live. That was an investment property.
Then they do a seller disclosure that says, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. You can't force anybody to do a seller disclosure. There's no contractual obligation unless you write it in the contract and they agree. And there's no legal obligation to do a seller's disclosure other than the law that says you need to disclose anything that materially affects the value of the property and is not obvious. Okay. So the law requires disclosure when there is something, but there's no requirement anywhere to actually complete the seller disclosure form. So look, my mother died. I never lived there. I've never seen it. Okay, so you don't know, and you're right on it. I've never been in the house. I don't know. You might know, but that's what you're going to say. You might know because you might have helped your mother pay the bills to get the roof fixed or whatever. So, but how are you going to find that out? You don't.
And what happened after the closing, that something happened in the house and the new owner have to go and find out that the work was done without permit? They can do anything back to the previous owner, or it just have to pay the cost
You
of the...
could sue the seller for failure to disclose, misrepresentation, fraudulent misrepresentation, negligent misrepresentation. There's a lot of causes that you could bring against the seller. However, number one, you have to prove that the seller actually knew, not they should have known. You have to prove that they knew. Sometimes you can't prove. That could be difficult. Second of all, a lawsuit like that requires expert testimony, which becomes expensive for the buyer, who's the plaintiff, to get experts to testify, well, this has been existing, or how he knew or should have known about it. But should have known is not enough in that type of lawsuit. You need to have a smoking gun. I'll explain to you that in a minute. And then finally, how many people have all of their assets really tied up in their house? Then they sell the house and buy another one, which is protected by homestead. So you might get a judgment against them for a lot of money, but sometimes it's not collectible. So you have to know who your seller is. If it's an investor, they just close out the LLC and start a new one. And some of them use a new LLC every 6 months. So there are no assets to go after.
Yeah.
So sometimes you could bring a lawsuit, you could even win, but you may have spent a lot of money doing it. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not going to take a contingency fee to do that. Um, so, how do you find a smoking gun? Um, 3 days after closing, the toilet starts backing up and shooting whatever goes into the toilet out of the toilet,
No.
all over the place. Calls a plumber. The plumber said, "Oh, I was here 4 times last year. I, I told this guy that those pipes are no good. There, I even put a camera down there, and all the pipes had roots growing through them. So I told him he needs to change all the underground pipes, and he refused to do it, and he sold the house. So how do you know that?
Yeah.
You don't. In this case, he was lucky enough to find a smoking gun.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then
Yeah.
how big is the lie? That becomes another thing.
Yeah.
Is there damages that have to be repaired, such as changing pipes or um, mitigating mold and things like that? We have to tear out walls and treat and whatever. Or did they just lie about something about this house is on city sewers and it really had a septic tank? So they never had a septic tank inspection done, which had problems. Um, and did the owner and did the owner know or did the realtor know? And I think, in this case, it was the realtor's fault because the realtor posted it on MLS as
Yeah.
sewer because the realtor saw online that there was a bill from the city for wastewater and just presumed it was for sewage, water, wastewater, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. It had no sewage. Um, and what's the value on that? It was just what's the value of a house with a septic tank or on city? What's the difference? Which I think we determined by an appraiser to be about $10,000 difference.
Mhm.
And we settled that case. But they're very difficult cases. Take a long time, cost a lot of money to do, and very difficult to settle in the beginning.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well,
So, like I said, it's one of the hardest questions anybody's ever asked me. How do you protect yourself against a seller who doesn't disclose? Or being generous, a seller who really doesn't even know.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, I do believe sometimes, and I want to believe also, that the seller was total ignorant or not knowing what have to be done. And because the mix of you know people that come to your house and said no, you don't need it, and people that come to your house and said you need a permit and this is the amount of money that you have to do and go to this process, we will do it for you and that will be an extra charge or whatever, and come another and said no, you don't have to do that, and this is the price, and it's like, oh, but somebody told me that I need a permit, and they don't go for, let me call the city and find out if I need a permit or not to change my toilet, to say something. And they go for, what you are doing.
Mhm. Yep.
And I know for many other investors what they said that they can do, and it's the amount of money that costs if they get caught with the city. And I find out for one that they did everything good, and then the city come and say like they don't have any problem. The problem is I don't know what you put on the underneath of that roof, and I have to see it. So you have to do it again, and they
Mhm.
have to do it in order to um, to sell the home, which was a very expensive home, and the
So I
city.
have to say that one time we did something without a permit and the city came, but at least the contractor I used took pictures of
Oh,
everything he did in moving the plumbing and the seals and everything, and the city passed it based on those pictures. They didn't
oh,
make us rip up the floor or anything. Mhm.
yeah. And this case was on the pandemic in 2020, and the house was under renovation, so no inspectors were around. And they did an excellent job. The house was gorgeous. It was amazing, beautiful. And everything was done on their code because we're for doing a professional license, but the city was not working. But
Mm.
and then they came the time to the selling the house, and you need a certification to sell, like a recertification by the city. And they came and they go like, wow, you did
Some
great.
cities, some cities like Miramar, if they get a lien search request, they'll send somebody out to inspect the property. They'll
Yeah,
send a code inspector to take a look.
I understand in Fort Lauderdale, some part of Fort Lauderdale they are doing, and Hollywood, I believe, is one of the ones that you cannot even change your AC without permit, and you cannot close the
Anywhere,
door.
you must get an AC permit for
Yeah,
any place.
yeah. I live in a house that I have problem with the AC, and the owner came and they run with the AC, and he said, "Please don't say that we changed the AC." And I look at him like, "This is not my house. I'm moving out. I'm just telling you it's not working." And he said, like, no, because if the city knows, like, that's your problem. That is not my problem. And by the way, I didn't pay for the AC, and I'm moving out. And he did everything inside the house, very good, but no permits whatsoever.
Mhm.
So interesting. I feel like this is a long way to go for anything and everything that can be done without permit, and it can be a problem on the future. And for many families, it was a pure luck, and the person who did the job was like also a good one and never has a problem. So,
Mhm.
but I feel now that the cities are getting into more look what these renovations, and the fact that this inspector said that the city is receiving the MLS active listings and read and it's like all the description is like, oh,
That's good.
fully renovated, new kitchen,
Mhm.
new bathroom. And it's like, whoa. And it's like, and they go and they pull, and it's no permits, and they go and see like, oh, I see that you are doing a renovation here, can we see it, or can we see the house? And they go in. Very intelligent.
That's smart. That's good. That
Yeah.
protects the buyers,
Hmm.
the unknowing buyers. Anything else, Jackie?
That's it. I hope you have an amazing vacation. Hope to see you when you come back.
I'll
Take care
be
of
back.
yourself.
Schedule with Nina the next one.
Yes,
Okay.
I will. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.